Hello students, good evening to all of you. Students, allow me a minute. Notes have been jumbled up. So very good evening to all of you students. Kavita, Tulsi, Anuradha. Students, first and foremost, again, if any confusion about the batch कि कोई हिंदी वाले लोग होंगे सर हिंदी की क्लास कब होगी? यही आईडीटी की फ्री टैक्स जो आईडीटी की जो फ्री प्रैक्टिस बैच है हिंदी का टाइमिंग है 7:30 इन द मॉर्निंग. तो कल पहली क्लास हिंदी की होगी एट 7:30 इन द मॉर्निंग, विच इज मंडे, which we are that is 5th. English timing is at 9:15 at night and Hindi would be in the morning 7:30. Priya, good evening, good evening. So students, on that note, I'm starting with the first session for all of you now on the basic concept. In that context, so friends, let's start then in that regard. So students, this is a topic of basic topic, students, which is there. I mean, good evening, Shreya, good evening. Basic topic is there. One of the most important topic, I must say that way. Why it is so important? Because of the fact, two reasons. One is that many of the conceptual or the framework gets established from this topic, and second and most important from an examination point of view, Rishi, is this: that there is absolutely no scope of any error as far as this topic is concerned. No scope of any error, students. When I say it, I really mean it. If at all, students, from this topic any question comes, maybe in the form of an MCQ or for whatever be the reason, descriptive question, anything comes from this basic topic, and if you are not sure about it, then take a suggestion from me, students, please don't attempt that topic, that particular question or the MCQ as the case may be. Because if they find an error on your part, primarily in this particular question or the MCQ, the kind of an impression that the examiner will have that you are a CFI student and the most fundamental structural part of IDT you are not aware of, this is going to go very negatively in the mind of the examiner. So one may say that, sir, it is only for 1 mark or 2 marks that the question was asked, but the impression that is set from this topic would be tremendous. So we have to be very careful, students, about this particular topic. Again, I'm warning to all of you one particular point. If you know it, you know it. You don't know it, please don't make a particular guesswork in this topic. Some guessing work, if at all has to be made, could be for the advanced topic, but definitely for not for this topic. This is one thing which don't think from the terms of how much marks that it is carrying, only 1 mark, 2 marks. Doesn't matter. The impression will be the most important factor. The subsequent evaluation which the examiner might do would have a very negative prejudice in his mind while he is evaluating your subsequent answers. Am I clear to all of you, students? On that particular aspect, students, I'm starting with this. Obviously, this topic, the way it is given and the way we are going to put it, obviously many conceptual parts will get addressed from this thing, and many of the interlinking which I need to do in the subsequent topic, I will take the opportunity to do those interlinking from this particular topic itself. And that is something that you will appreciate probably towards the end of the session. GST, Genesis of India, students, all of you are aware of it. Couple of two or three things, students. Couple of things. This dates, obviously they will not ask at your end. At inter-CA, that is an important particular question, not at your level, but nevertheless, if I may have to in fact tick mark some dates for you, couple of dates, Prasanna. Good evening. August 2016. This is the date. This particular date, students, the constitutional 101 amendment, the first 101st amendment, students. This is the one of the most historical event to amend the constitution on this particular date, students, is an important event. It happened in August 2016, and thereafter you will learn in the today's class the formation of a GST council, and the first meeting of the GST council. This is a very powerful body in the GST implementation and the GST framework of the law family. So the first particular meeting is September 2016, and when the GST has been launched, students, we all are aware, 1st July 2017. At least we will not goof up on 1st July 2017, but I'm just giving you a couple of more dates to be remembered, Sanidhya. Couple of dates to be remembered, students. Okay, so therefore just keep in mind these dates as well, primarily in this particular context. Okay. Deficiency in this context, GST, as you know, need of GST, we all are aware, primarily earlier scheme of taxation and the new GST scheme of taxation, what it has done, every one of you are aware of it. But nevertheless, just to recap, the most important particular part, students, was this particular thing. What is that? The earlier particular scheme of taxation, indirect taxation, wherein you had excise duty, you have VAT, you have service tax, and there were other particular indirect tax levy. There was a huge cascading effect of taxes. Now, obviously, students, Mohammed, Jyoti, good evening. Obviously, many of you are aware of cascading effect. What do you mean by the term cascading effect? But if at all some students are not aware of, sir, what do you mean by cascading effect? I will get an opportunity in the today's class to explain you how the cascading effect takes place in some of the case study. But very beautiful case study we are going to do. So at that particular case study, I'm going to explain you that concept of cascading effect. Many of you are aware of it. That old scheme of taxation, there was a cascading effect. And what is this cascading effect? The previous supply, whatever was the tax was being charged, because you were not getting the credit of those taxes in your supply, therefore those taxes coming from the previous supply were forming a part of their cost. And because it became the part of the cost, therefore in your supply, when you have to charge your taxes, you were charging the tax on a value. Which value? The value which already included those duties and taxes. So it was tax on tax. That is what you mean by the term cascading effect. Exactly, Jyoti. Tax on tax. Okay. Case study, primarily I'll just explain you in the subsequent particular discussion that cascading effect. I'm going to give you a particular gist of that particular cascading effect in that particular context. So that is the most important part why we are in fact in the GST regime, and this is what primarily you can say here. We say cascading effect. In income tax law we use the word double taxation. Students, Fayaz, good evening. Here we say in indirect tax law cascading effect. In the direct tax law, students, tell me what the term was referred as. Double taxation. Obviously the valuation is different, but the concept is the same. So there, to avoid the double taxation, we have double taxation avoidance agreement. Here, to avoid the cascading effect, we have GST. How did you realize the comparison? In fact, as we progress further, topic like demand, assessment, adjudication, penalties, we will get an opportunity to do a lot of comparison between what happens in the direct tax and what happens in the indirect taxes. And you will enjoy that particular comparison as well, so that there is a clarity about, okay, this is the position that we take in direct tax law and this is the position that we take in indirect tax law. Because sometimes what happens, the things get jumbled up. After a point of time, the thing starts getting jumbled up. So to avoid that, primarily I will ensure that the things are done meticulously. Anyway, up till now, all clear, students? Shall we go to the next slide in this particular context? Yes. Prasanna? Yes, central sales tax is also one of the things, but central sales tax has got a different genesis. Students, one particular thing, because Prasanna has said about central sales tax. Can anyone tell me, students, right now the difference between the CST and versus Krishnamurti, good evening, versus the VAT or maybe GST? Quickly, students, difference between the two, CST and this particular part. Is there any fundamental difference between these two things, students? CST and the VAT or the GST? One of the most important distinctions, students, you should be in a position to speak about it. Quickly. GST versus, it's a live lecture, students, so please participate. Family, YouTube already gives you that particular option of participating it. So very quickly, students, get me an answer. The most important distinction between a CST versus the VAT or GST. Interstate state, fine, fair enough. Okay. That distinction is okay. That, sir, VAT is family intrastate and CST was interstate. Apart from that, intra and interstate, one of the most important distinction between this levy and the earlier levy. There you are, students. The concept of destination based tax. Be careful, students. This is one of the most important distinction between the CST or the VAT or GST, as the case may be. The concept here, CST, students, was the levy. Which levy? Which was the levy for CST? Which levy for CST? It is not the destination. CST was an origin based tax. What was CST? It was an origin based tax. The origin based tax was what the CST was, and the VAT and the GST is about what? The destination based tax. This is about what? The destination, students, the destination based tax. So the fundamental difference between the two is the fact that the CST is origin based, VAT or the GST is a destination based. Now I hope that all of you are at least aware on this particular part, which in the case of CST, the state from which, the state from where the supply originates, the state from where the supply originates, that was the state who used to administer and who used to get the share of CST. That is origin based. Okay, the state from where the supply used to start, begin or originate, that was a state which used to retain the CST amount. The VAT and the GST, as you all are aware, it's a destination based concept, which means that the state where the goods or the supply is finally consumed, the state where the goods or services are finally consumed, that is the state which will be the one to whom the VAT or GST will be charged. So therefore, origin based, from where it begins, that is a state which will charge the CST and will retain the CST. Whereas in the case of VAT or GST, the destination based concept is applicable. That is to say, where the consumption of goods or services takes place, that is the state where the charge of CST will be attracted. The charge of CST will be attracted. GST or the VAT will be attracted. The consumption state. I hope that all of you are at least clear on this particular part, because this is the most starting point, the fundamental structure or the structural difference between the CST versus the GST or VAT. Is that clear to all of you, students? Shall we begin? Students, now coming to this page number 3, students. Be careful one. Rishi, Kavita. Screen. Yeah, this is it. Is it white, students? Yeah. Students. Just it. Just a second, students. Just got stuck on this one. Unfortunately, students, the charge didn't happen properly today. Students, just allow me a minute. Students, now I think it will get just the system was on charge. Actually, the system still is in charge. That is the reason why students were stuck. Just 2 minutes, students. It will be sorted out. Fine, students. I hope that now the screen is fine. Confirm once, students. Buffering and all this should be over now. Okay, students. All good? Perfect. Now, students, you can just confirm in this particular context. Perfect, students. Jyoti, Sanadhya. Okay, fair enough, students. So, students, now comes the framework of GST as was being introduced in India. Now, obviously, we all are aware on this particular fact that this, which has been adopted, students, has been adopted into a unique federal structure of India. Now, there is a federal structure, students, that we all are aware. India has this unique federal structure concept. Students, federal structure would imply this, that the federal structure in that scenario would imply what? That primarily we are federal structure means thereby we have got a center and we have got various states to govern or to implement a law. So this GST law is something which is being implemented at both center as well as at the state level. That is what you understand by the term federal structure. This particular GST law is both implemented by both the center as well as the state. So both of them actually are doing this particular implementation of the GST. Now over here, students, you should be aware of some important particular aspect which has been there with all of you, because this thing comes in a very advanced particular discussion. You will find this concept getting targeted, and that is the reason why, students, it is important that I introduce this concept straight away with all of you. Students, as we all are aware, there are total 20 in this particular context. How many states are there in this particular scenario, students? Total number of states? Total number of state students. So there are total students 28 states. 28 state students. All of you will agree. Prasanna says 31. Is there 28 states or 31 state students? How many states in totality? 28 or 31? So yes. How many state students in this context? Be careful, students. Herein 28 plus 3. So students, over here, that's very good answer. In this particular context, students, just be very careful on this particular part. So technically speaking, as we all know from a layman perspective, students, as we all are aware that there are 28 states. How many union territories, students, in this context? How many union territories? Why this is important? Because you will have to in fact have the UT, GST and all these concepts will be tested not right now but later on in this regard. Somewhere primarily in the high C sales and all, at that stage also you will need to be very careful about to understand that whether it is a case of a state GST or it will be a UT GST at that particular point of time. So therefore, at least these are some of the fundamental thing which has been there. So as we all are aware of this particular point, students, that we have this 28 states which has been there in this context. So every one of you are aware of the fact that there are total 28 states in this context. But then there is a UT also which comes into picture. So there is a concept of UT as well which has been there over here, and there are total 8 union territory, students. Total 8 union territories are there. Now that 8 union territory, students, which is there, we will say 5 plus 3. There is a speciality about the 3 union territories, which is Delhi, J&K and Pondicherry. And these 3 union territory are those which has even they have got their own state legislature. Delhi, J&K and your Pondicherry. These 3 particular states has got what? They do have their own state legislature. What about Chandigarh? Is it also union territory? Is it also union territory? Chandigarh, Andaman Nicobar, Dadra and Nagar Haveli, are these also union territory? Now in those union territory like Chandigarh, Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Andaman and Nicobar, primarily if I have to say, they are also union territory, but they don't have the state legislature. Only 3 union territory, students, have got what? They have got their own state legislature. And those union territory which has a state legislature are being known as a state. And accordingly, in this particular context, students, when we talk about state as a concept, so therefore many of you have got it right. It is 28 plus 3. 28 plus 3, students, in this context. So 28, the states which has been there, you add 3 union territory which has got state legislature, which has their own legislature, which is Delhi, Pondicherry, and the third one, students, I told you about J&K. So therefore now total state for GST purpose, students, total state for GST purpose. Total state for GST purpose would be considered as 31. Please take a note of it. Total. Okay, by the way, students, I told you to maintain a notebook. I hope that everyone is maintaining for this practice by a separate notebook. Because then when the questions we have to solve at that particular point of time, we will have to take a lot of particular observations at that particular stage. So for the GST purpose, the total number of state is 31. Primarily, and how many union territory, which is pure union territory. Pure union territory means in that particular context they don't have any state legislature. There are total 5. So 31 plus 5 is the bifurcation. 31 plus 5, which is the bifurcation, students. Is that point clear to all of you in this context? Everyone herein? So therefore, in this particular context, students, when we have to say in this regard, so 28 plus 3 And those three students, as we all know, Delhi, J&K, and Pondicherry. That is primarily how the things are there. So therefore, this is your state, primarily. And these three has got what? State legislature. These three has got, students, what? State legislature. Is that pretty fine, students, to all of you? Other than that, students, we have the remaining 5 union territories, 5 UT, primarily. So 5 UT is there, students, in this particular case, which actually don't have any kind of they don't have any of the state legislature. Now comes, students, the real particular point. Over here, just pay attention, students, all of you, in this particular context. So over here, students, the question that arises for your consideration is this particular part. Yes, yes, students. Students, over here, in the entire GST law, students, just tell me one thing. There is Mr. A of Maharashtra. He is supplying the goods. There are two supply that he has made. Supply that he has made is to Mr. B of Gujarat. This is supply number 1. And there is a second supply that he has made is to Mr. C of, say, USA. Third supply, friends, he has made of Mr. D, also of Maharashtra. So let me give the numbering of it. 1, 2, and 3. Please tell me the type of sale, type of supply for all 1, 2, and 3. Answer it quickly, students. What is the type of supply, students, in this case? First case, Mr. A of Maharashtra to Mr. D of Maharashtra. Second case, Mr. A of Maharashtra to Mr. B of Gujarat. Third case, Mr. A of Maharashtra to Mr. C of USA. What is the type of supply in these 3 cases? Quickly, students. The type of supply in this regard. What is the type of supply, students, in this particular context? 1, 2, and 3. Serial number is this. Just answer me. 1 is this, 2 is this, 3 is this. Quickly. Answer it. Jyoti. Kavita. Ramesh. Fayaz. No. So, students, please do answer it, students, because at least that will also help me to understand the level, and accordingly, in this context, I will be in a position to accordingly customize my explanation to the extent that is required based on your understanding. So, students, the first in the GST, Yogi, Sanidhya, Rishi, Prasanna, Ramesh, Avin, in the GST law, students, always be very careful on one point. There are only 2 supply which has been mentioned. There are only 2 supplies. And those 2 supply, students, in this context is, one is, as you all know, the first supply is intrastate, within the state. So therefore, first one, Fayaz, from Mr. A of Maharashtra to Mr. D of Maharashtra, it is intrastate. Within the state, it is intrastate. Second supply, Maharashtra to Gujarat, it is interstate supply. The third particular supply from Maharashtra to USA, students, is also interstate. So whatever is the supply outside the state, please take a note of it in your notes. Whatever is the supply outside the state, those supply would be referred as an interstate supply. Those supply will be referred as an interstate supply. Now, outside the state can be another state in India or can be another country. We don't know primarily. But any supply which goes outside the state, that supply will be an interstate supply. Don't use the word export. Be careful when you write your answer. Yes, you can say, just here our question is to identify the type of supply. What is the type of supply? I'm not asking you the consequence, whether the GST will be charged or not. This is not my question. My question is limited only to identify the type of supply. So the first case is within the state, that is the state of Maharashtra, intrastate. All the other two cases is outside the state, and therefore those two supply 2 and 3 would be referred as an interstate supply. Is that point clear to all of you students? Every one of you? Have you taken a note of it? Any supply which is outside the state will be an interstate supply. So these are certain fundamental aspects. Now you will say, but sir, in export we don't charge GST. This is not my question right now. Yes, we do know there is a concept of zero rating because destination based concept applies, and because the destination of the consumption happens to be USA in the third case, so USA will be the country which you have the right to charge or levy the taxes. India doesn't have any right to levy the tax because the destination happens to be USA. So therefore, that question would be for the levy of GST is the question. Then you are right that no, India cannot levy the GST. But here the question was, what is the type of supply? And the supply in this particular case would be an interstate supply for 2 and 3. Outside the state, any supply, it is an interstate supply. Is that point clear to all of you students? Yes, Krishnamurti, understood all of you. Can we proceed further then? With your permission. If all set, students. So in this particular context, students, over here, in this particular context, students, which has been given to you, Krishnamurti, all of you just ensure to take a note of this statement, some of the statement which will be there. GST compensation, says students, there is some brief note which has been given. I'll explain to you that GST compensation says, but then let's come to the most important part first, and then towards the end I'll take some simple areas. Now let me come to the main particular aspect immediately. Students, primarily, as you all are aware, in this particular context, I'll now take up some of the advanced concepts because many of the areas that you people are all already aware of it. So let me in fact take across this particular thing, students, in this context. This is, I'm in page number 8 now. Constitutional provision, students. I'm taking across the constitutional provision now first. As you all know, students, as per the Constitution of India, the power to levy and collect taxes, whether it is direct tax or indirect tax, emerges from the Constitution of India, for which you all are aware. Those relevant articles are there. Now, the 7th schedule, students, is primarily article number 246. Now, this is an important discussion that we are having it right now, students, because here also you cannot goof up. There are at least some 2 or 3 constitutional articles that you have to know it. If you go wrong over there, students, again would be a big blunder in the eyes of whom? In the eyes of the examiner. So just be very careful on this particular area now. Students, before the GST was introduced, this was the article which was the most important article. Which was the article? Article number 246. Now, what article number 246 provided? It provided, students, there was a 7th schedule to this particular article. And this 7th schedule had the 3 list which was there. One is the union list, second was a state list, and the third one was the concurrent list. Many of you are aware of this one. In the union list, students, the power was given to the center to frame the law, and the law which was given, students, in the union list, they were having both the taxation as well as the non-tax matters. As far as the state list was concerned, students, again here the power was given to the state for the purpose of framing the laws. Again, the laws would be taxation and non-tax matters. And the concurrent list, which is an important one, both the center as well as the state, on the same matter, they could come up with the law. Many people felt that it is a concurrent list from which the GST could be introduced. The concurrent list. So that, because concurrent, why? Because both the state as well as center can, on the same subject, they can frame the law. That is what we have found in the GST. Na? On the same subject, both the center as well as the state are the one who have framed the law. CGST Act and SGST Act. Subject matter remains the same. Primarily. So one may argue that could be a concurrent list through which the GST should have been introduced, but the answer was no. In the concurrent list, GST could not be introduced for the reason being concurrent list was only for the purpose of non-taxes matter like police, like education, like trust. These were the matter which were non-taxation matter. So on non-taxation matter, there were certain items identified in the concurrent list on which both the government had the power to, on the same subject, both the government had the power to introduce a law. Both the government. So in that situation, students, concurrent list, to use concurrent list for the purpose of introduction of GST was something which was an impossible aspect, for the reason being I told you why concurrent list could not be used. The reason is known to all of you students. The concurrent list cannot be used for the reason being it is a non-taxes matter. So therefore, what happened, students, in this particular context, some important constitutional amendment took place. Some important constitutional amendment took place. We will run through the constitutional amendment one by one, and the most important primary one by one I'll go is one of the item is Article 366 12A. This is one of the most important particular amendment, the constitutional amendment that has taken place, Article 366 12A, students. Now, so far as this article is concerned, what it says, goods and service tax means any tax on supply of goods or service or both, except taxes on supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Except supply of taxes on alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Now, students, you tell me one thing. By virtue of the constitutional entry itself, the levy on alcohol for human consumption is taken out completely. Is it possible, therefore, under the GST law, whether it is CGST or SGST, whether it is a center or the state, under the GST law, can they introduce a GST on alcoholic liquor for human consumption? Answer is no. Does that therefore mean that there is no taxes which are imposed as far as alcoholic liquor for human consumption is concerned? Does that therefore mean, students, that there are no taxes? The answer is no. This power, the exclusive power, is retained by whom? By the state government. And the state government continues to charge the old taxes. Which are the old taxes? The state excise duty and VAT on this particular aspect. The state excise duty and VAT, students, on this particular aspect continues as far as the alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Now, this is one of the demerit item. We can say alcoholic liquor for human consumption is one of the demerit item. There is another demerit item, students, which you will find out in this case, and that is also tobacco and tobacco product, which we will speak about it. That what happens about tobacco and tobacco product, we will see about it. But before doing that, students, let's see now the second particular amendment through which the GST was introduced. That is Article 246A. Article 246A. Power to make law with respect of GST. What is the power to make law with respect of GST, students? Please have a look, students. One by one, we will run through this one. The power has been granted, students, the power has been granted to both the center as well as the state government to make the law with respect to GST imposed by the center or such state. So the center, students, will make the CGST Act. The state government, students, has made what? The SGST Act. That is what we know. So here in the box number 1, students, be careful. Huh? Power is granted to center and the state government to make law with respect to GST imposed by center or such state. So which law has been made? CGST Act, SGST Act. See the second line item, students. Second line item. Center has the exclusive power, Article 246A, exclusive power to make laws with respect of to make law with respect to GST in the case of interstate supply. So we know that IGST Act exclusively which is made by the central government. State government doesn't have any say on that as far as the IGST Act is concerned. And now comes the third box, students. Be careful over here. However, in respect of petroleum crude, high-speed diesel, petrol, natural gas, aviation turbine fuel, the aforesaid provision shall apply from the date recommended by the GST Council. So, students, may I ask you the question? So, how many items? Petroleum crude, high-speed diesel, petrol, natural gas, and aviation turbine fuel. So, therefore, there are 5 petroleum products. On these 5 petroleum products, mark my words, mark my questions now. In these 5 petroleum product, will there be no GST at all? Just like alcoholic liquor for human consumption? Or the charge of GST is postponed? Again, I'm repeating the question. On these 5 items which they have specified, will there be no GST at all? Just like alcoholic liquor for human consumption, or the charge or the levy is postponed? In this case, always be careful, students, when you write your answer. Never ever write like this, that there is no levy on the 5 petroleum product. You should not use those the wordings which they use it in this case. Yes, today they are not taxable. They are not a taxable item. But that is something that you will say that the levy is postponed subject to the recommendation of the GST Council in this context. But what about this particular part of alcoholic liquor for human consumption? In the Article 366 itself, it has been taken out from the ambit of the law of GST. So, in the law of GST, alcoholic liquor for human consumption will not find its way at all. In any law of GST, the alcoholic liquor for human consumption will never ever find its way. But the 5 petroleum item will find its way in the law of GST as per the recommendation of the GST Council. Is that point clear to all of you, students? The charge therefore is postponed. I hope that every one of you are clear on this particular point. No mistake when you write your sentences, students. Be careful on this. So keep marking out the sentence which I am specifically emphasizing to all of you, that you cannot make any error. And please don't write like this. It is exempt. Some students in their answer write, alcoholic liquor for human consumption is exempt from GST. A wrong technical answer. It is not. To come to the stage of exemption, first you have to cross the levy. Be careful, students. To come to the stage of exemption, first you have to cross the levy. Once you have crossed the levy, then primarily the exemption, is it available or not, will be decided. But you need to first cross the levy, and then we will decide whether there is any exemption which is available or not in respect of such supply. But as far as this item is concerned, in this case, alcoholic liquor for human consumption, there is absolutely no levy on account of specific exclusion given in article number 366. So far as the 5 petroleum item is concerned, the levy, however, stands postponed as per the recommendation of the GST Council. So yes, there is no levy as far as this 5 petroleum item is concerned, but that levy, you will use the word, is postponed. Don't write it is exempt. This is a very important differentiation which you need to be very careful about it, students, because some of the answers that we see over here has got this sort of reason, and these reason itself cost you heavily in terms of not getting a good marks. Now, students, just very quickly I will run through this 101 amendment, the 101st amendment, students, of 2016. Concurrent power on parliament and state legislature to make the law governing taxes on the goods and services, that we already have seen. That is because of this 246A now. Through Amendment 101 in the Constitution of India, they introduced Article 246A, and through Article 246A, the power has been given to both the center as well as the state to charge the GST. Come to the second particular point, students. GST to be levied on supply of all goods and service except alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Article 279A, this is an important one, students. For final CA, this is important. Inter-CA is not that important, but for final CA, it is important. Article 279A, be careful. Huh? 279A of the Constitution empowers the President to constitute the GST Council. Something about GST Council, students, you should be aware of it because they do some very important thing. Some very important concept that you learn in the GST law is coming because of the recommendation given by the GST Council. So what are those concepts which is coming or arising because of the recommendation? That needs to be known. The next one, students, GST to be leviable on petroleum, 5 items would be from the date to be notified. Notified by whom? By these person, council. Center to retain power to levy excise duty on the above product, students. Center to retain the power, students, in this particular context. So they will retain the power, students, and that is one of the most important particular part. Now, students, here comes the very important reason, students. All of you will take a note of it. Students, I'll give you 3 examples in this particular context. Everyone will, students, take a note of it over here. Actually, one mistake which I have done, students, primarily today, I've put primarily the system on the charge right now. And that is the reason why this mistake has happened from my side. This should have already been, the system should have been charged. I had a lecture in the evening, students. So there was a back-to-back lecture that has happened, and therefore the system went into the charge mode. And therefore it got heated up a bit. Hence a bit of an issue arising. So this is an important particular part. Students, tell me one thing. Alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Let me first discuss this one out. Hopefully by then, Raj would be. Let me, in fact, discuss with all of you right now, and all of you just pay attention very quickly to a very important concept that I'm introducing with all of you. Alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Alcoholic liquor for human consumption, students. All of you, please tell me, will there be any GST that would be levied on alcoholic liquor for human consumption? Answer is no. What will then happen as far as this alcoholic liquor for human consumption is concerned? There will be an excise duty. So presently, primarily what will happen, students, would be excise duty charge. The levy would be that of the excise duty. The present levy that will be there, students, would be of what? Would be of the excise duty. So please have a look, students, over here, all of you. And you will take a note of this particular part, students. First one is the alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Tulsi, Jyoti, Kavita. Please have a look, students, now what the scenario would be. So there is a manufacturer who is manufacturing, supplying to the dealer, and from the dealer, Neeraj, it goes to whom? To the customer, the final customer. See the impact, students? Because now even your chapter on valuation is going to get triggered. Very important concept in your chapter of valuation. So there is a basic selling price, students, of 1,000 rupees. There's a basic selling price of say 1,000 rupees charged by the manufacturer to the dealer. Here thereafter they are charging excise duty at say 10%. So say this is 100. So subtotal is 110. The VAT, students, primarily was, say for example, VAT is also at 10%. The VAT used to be charged, students, on what rate? This is the cascading effect. So the old system still prevail. And what is the old system? Old system of excise duty and VAT as far as the alcoholic liquor for human consumption is concerned. So this VAT of 10% students would be on that value which includes excise duty. So it's a tax on tax. And if it is a tax on tax, it's a cascading effect. So now therefore students, the total happens to be 1211. 1211 students. Is that clear to all of you? Now both the amount students goes to the state government. Excise duty, that's state excise duty, and the VAT. It goes to the state government in this context. Now subsequently, when the dealer used to supply to the consumer, say the basic selling price is say 1500, be careful students. The excise duty credit, he never used to get it. So the Senmat credit, or may I say the credit in this context, he never used to get the credit of the excise duty from the previous supply. So because he never used to get the credit of excise duty from the previous supply, therefore can I say excise duty was a part of the cost? Can I therefore say excise duty is a part of the cost? And that exactly is the point, students. Excise duty, students, became the part of the cost. Why? Because you were not getting the credit of excise duty. Yes, in this context, students, therefore that excise duty became the part of the cost of the subsequent supplier, which is the dealer in this case. And accordingly, the VAT GST was available, so you can get the credit of VAT. This credit was available, so absolutely no issues on that. VAT to VAT credit was allowed. But excise duty, although charged by the same state government, you don't get the credit in the subsequent supply where the VAT was charged by the same state government. The credit was not there. And that being the scenario, students, say VAT, again 10%, 150, and this is what the scenario would be. So therefore, in this particular context, 1650. This is the first item, alcoholic liquor for human consumption. This is what is happening right now. So far as the alcoholic liquor for human consumption is concerned. This is what is happening right now. Position. Even today with the GST, this is the position. Is that point clear to all of you students? If that is the case, now I come to students that 5 petro product. What happens so far that 5 petro product is concerned? The 5 petro product, students, which has been there. Let's look upon to that. Because now there are 3 things that we have to be very careful about this in this context is the excise duty or the alcoholic liquor for human consumption. The 5 petroleum product, students, now in this particular context. The second one is a petrol product. Let's look upon to this one. What is the scenario for the petrol product? So here is a manufacturer, dealer, and the consumer in this context. So manufacturer, dealer, and consumer. So manufacturer would be the one, say again the basic selling price. In this context, say 1000. Now herein the excise duty would be charged at the rate of 10%. Now this excise duty would be charged by whom? By the central government, students, because the central government has not allowed these items to come under the GST at this point of time. The GST Council will recommend at what point of time that on these 5 petroleum products the GST will be introduced. The GST would be levied. So till that point of time, the old system will continue. Till that particular point of time, the old system will continue. And what is the old system? On the manufacture, on the petroleum product, it is an excise duty levied by the central government will be charged. So please be careful. That does the excise law is still applicable? And the answer is yes. For these limited item of 5 petroleum products. So yes, it is still there, students, in this context. So excise duty at the rate of 10%. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Now comes primarily the VAT. Whether the VAT will also be applied in this context? Yes, because GST cannot be charged. GST cannot be charged on this case. So the state government on the sale of this, the VAT will be charged at the rate of 10%, and that will be by the state government. And therefore, in this particular scenario, this will be at 111, and accordingly, students, 1211 is the total price that will be charged to the previous consumer, subsequent dealer. Now, what the dealer will charge, students, to him? Basic selling price in this particular context would be how much? Say 1500. Now, tell me one thing, whether the dealer will he be getting the credit of this one? Whether you will be getting the credit of this particular excise duty, and the answer is no. No credit. And if there is no credit given, why? Because it is a central government on manufacture. They are charging the excise duty. Dealer is not the manufacturer, and because dealer is not the manufacturer, therefore dealer cannot charge excise duty, and that is the reason why the the previous supply which has excise duty charge, on that excise duty there cannot be any credit given to the subsequent supplier. So no credit of the excise duty. And if there is no credit of excise duty, will they be a part of the cost? Will they be a part of the cost, students? And the answer is yes. This will be a part of the cost. And that being the scenario, students, in this situation, one can say that yes, there is a cascading effect which is taking place. VAT at the rate of 10%, VAT at the rate of 10%. Now VAT to VAT credit, whether that credit is available, yes, credit is available. So this will not be a part of the cost. Anyways, so in that situation, students, in this particular context, this is the reason. Can you imagine, students, what is the scenario that is taking place for the five petro product today? Five petro product today, there is a double cascading effect that is taking place. Double cascading effect that is taking place. You will say, sir, where is double cascading effect? The first cascading effect, students, in this particular scenario, the first cascading effect, students, is at the manufacturer level itself. Why? Because you see that the excise duty primarily which is charged on the excise duty on the subtotal. What is subtotal? 1100. On that the VAT is charged. So tax on tax. And the second cascading effect is because you don't get the credit, the subsequent dealer doesn't get the credit of the excise duty charge in the previous supply. Therefore, that excise duty becomes a part of the cost. And because it became the part of the cost of the dealer, the VAT which is charged is again on that value which already includes excise duty. VAT which has been charged is already on that value which includes excise duty. So can we therefore say it is a double excise duty in this context? Sorry, there is a double cascading effect that is taking place. Can we say that or not, students? Yes. This is what is happening right now. And after this, if you are clear, students, in this context, Jyoti, this query, Jyoti, don't put it right now in the first class. You can put it in the Telegram channel. We can discuss over there. But please don't put this query over here because it will totally go offshoot, completely discussion in this context. We are talking about 194Q. Obviously, I can answer it. Happens to be in an income tax part. But don't ask this one because it will be distracting completely the entire discussion right now. Okay, you can ask it in the Telegram channel. But don't do it right now on this one. Okay. Tobacco and tobacco product. Tobacco and tobacco product, students. What is the situation of tobacco and tobacco product? At this stage, to use these sin items. You understand that night time and we are talking about alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Tobacco and tobacco products, isn't it? These are the sin items. Therefore, those are the things which are being there. And therefore, in that particular context, students, manufacturer, dealer, and the customer. Do you know what is happening in the case of tobacco and tobacco products? What is the scenario, students, in this context? Now, these are the MCQ based questions that will be there. In this case, you just be conceptually be very clear. Say the basic selling price is 1000. Basic selling price is 1000, students. Excise duty, students, over here is at 10%. Say 100. In this context, you take a subtotal 1100. Question therefore is on this. Just a second, students. See what is the language that they have written. Students, just have a look. Center to retain the power to levy excise duty on the above products as well as tobacco. Now, is tobacco coming in that 5 items? Tell me one thing, is tobacco coming in 5 items? No. If it is not coming in that 5 items for which there is a postponement of charge of GST, my next question to all of you, therefore, is whether GST can it be charged on tobacco and tobacco items? If it is not coming in that 5 items on which there is a postponement of the charge of GST, then whether on the tobacco is the GST charge? And the answer is yes. But 101 amendment says what? That the center can also, apart from the fact that the GST can be charged on the same, but the center can continue its right to charge excise duty. The center can continue to charge its excise duty, students. And if center can continue that, so therefore excise duty is getting charged on this tobacco and tobacco item. and then thereafter, students, on this particular part there is a VAT. Sorry, VAT is not there. There's no VAT. Be careful. Just you will write like this, students. Whether there will be a VAT, answer is no. You'll cross it like this. And is there a GST? The answer is yes. So there is indeed a GST. So there will be a CGST, SGST, as the case may be. And say, for example, whatever be the percentage, say 9%, 9%. CGST and SGST. So this becomes 99, this becomes 90. Is that point clear to all of you? Everyone? Now, question therefore is, just hold on. Is this calculation right? Or let me put it, students, this way. Let me put it to all of you. Now comes the valuation topic. Be careful. In this particular context, students, please tell me one thing. Be careful. This GST rate of 18%, 9% and 9% would be on what value? What will be the valuation on this? Two questions. Question number one, the value would be 1000. Question number two, the value would be 1100. Quickly, student. This GST which I have to charge now, excise duty, as per 101st amendment, 101 amendment, it says that center will continue to charge the excise duty. Continue to charge the excise duty. Yes, they are charging it. So now my question is that whether GST can also be charged in this context. Neeraj, for simplicity purpose, I'm taking 99% because I don't have the calculus, so I'm just using this particular part. My question is here, students, on what value now the GST would be charged? Will it be charged on 1000 rupees or will it be charged on 1100 rupees? Jyoti, Rishi, Kavita, Payas, Prasanna, Abhin, Tulsi. Indeed, students. That exactly is the point. Friends, here comes the valuation particular part, which is actually a very important concept. And if you see the valuation particular part over here, in this particular context, here in section 15 of the valuation, in section 15 of the valuation, students, you will find this particular provision. And if you see, what they say is this, that in this particular context, whatever is the valuation that you've been charged would be the transaction value in this scenario. And here, primarily, they will include all what? The non-GST taxes. All the non-GST taxes will be included in the valuation. Many of you who are already done with this, they do know. In this case, non-GST taxes, primarily, in this regard. So all the non-GST taxes, students, will be a part of your valuation on which the GST would be charged. Is that point clear to all of you, students? Everyone? So that exactly is the point. So herein the answer would be, students, 1100, on which the amount would be charged. Excellent, students. Perfect. Now the next one, students, as you know, so on 1100, so therefore the answer would be 99 and 99. The value would be 99 and 99. Take the subtotal. This is the value of the invoice. Is that clear to all of you, students? No. Don't say including of all taxes, including of all the non-GST. That is what is the correct one in this context. Because if you say, Prasanna, including of all taxes, now the next question is, what about TCS? Will TCS be a part of the value? TCS concept, students, it will come in the subsequent lectures and all. But those who may be aware of it, whether the TCS which I have collected, primarily which has been there, whether TCS, will it be a part of the transaction value? Will it be a part of it? And the answer is no. TCS will not be a part of it, students. So again, in this particular context, so non-GST tax and non-TCS. So may I say non-GST and non-TCS. So all the non-GST and the non-TCS, students, is what will be would be considered for the purpose of defining the assessable value under section 15 on which the GST would be charged. Yes, Jyoti, there is a TCS concept that will be there in this case. Now, in that scenario, students, which has been there in this context, e-commerce operator and all, you may be aware of. You should be aware. If you'll see this subsequent topic will come. Dealer, students, over here in this context. Now, dealer, students, in this scenario, The basic selling price is say 1500. Now for the dealer, students, what will happen? Whether he can get the credit of excise duty. Dealer, can he get the credit of excise duty? No. So no credit will be available. And if no credit would be available, you all know, students, there will be a cascading effect. There will be a cascading effect in this context, isn't it? And then, students, finally, there is a GST that will be charged. For the GST, the credit primarily would be available subject to the item which is block credit. We will see that thing in ITC chapter. But the GST which will be there, whatever it be, and that is how it would be. So this is how the things are there as far as the tobacco and tobacco product is concerned. This is how, students, the things are there so far as the tobacco and tobacco products are concerned. So in tobacco and tobacco product also there is a double cascading effect. And what is the double cascading effect? At the manufacturer level, since excise on the GST is charged on the value which includes excise duty. Can we say that? At the manufacturer level, students, please pay attention to the last sentence. I do know it's 10:30 at night and you might be feeling drowsy and sleepy a bit, but so be it, doesn't matter. Family. Students, over here in that scenario, students, can you please tell me one thing, whether this will be forming a part of the value or not? Whether it will form part of the value, to that, students, the answer is no. In this particular, sorry. Whether the excise duty, students, will it form part of the value? And the answer is yes. And because it forms part of the value, on that the GST is charged. So therefore, at the manufacturer level, there is a cascading effect. And then at the subsequent dealer level also there is a cascading effect. Why there is a cascading effect at the subsequent dealer level? Because the excise duty which is charged in the previous supply, on that excise duty there is no credit available to the dealer in the subsequent chain of the transaction. And because he doesn't get the credit of the excise duty, therefore that excise duty form a part of the assessable value. And therefore the basic selling price includes that particular excise duty, and hence now the GST which is charged include GST that is charged is on the value which includes excise duty. So double cascading effect. And that is where we stand, students, so far as this tobacco and tobacco product is concerned as on today. As on today, students. Is that point clear to all of you, students? Please tell me clearly. Is that point clear to all of you, students? Every one of you, students, in this context? So with that, students, we are done with this particular point. With this particular point, students, now, students, with your permission, we'll just quickly recap the things which has been there. First of all, we have just introduced primarily the structural part of the GST, and the most important point which we have now introduced is how the goods are being placed so far as these GST laws are concerned. So that is primarily what we have introduced in this particular case. This is something which is an important part because here lies the concept of valuation as well. Now, students, there are some miscellaneous matters which is left in this particular topic which has been there. But if you allow me only for today. Yeah, Prasanna, for GST, the ITC is available, no? Where I'm not, I am in fact saying, no? For GST, the ITC is available, students. I am absolutely, where I'm denying it. But what I'm saying is that excise duty, no? But the cascading effect would mean what? The GST is charged on the value which include excise duty. That is cascading effect. GST to GST, ITC is available. So to that extent, that GST doesn't form part of the value of the subsequent transaction chain, because on the previous transaction GST credit is available to the subsequent dealer. But excise duty credit is not available. Because excise duty credit is not available, primarily therefore for the subsequent dealer, primarily there is this excise duty of the previous transaction forms part of the cost. And to the manufacturer itself, while charging the GST, you are charging on the value which includes excise duty, which is there in the valuation provision also. And that exactly is the point. So students, only for today, I hope that all of you are clear with this one, students. Just students, today itself, because I think the system again will get sniped out. It just unfortunately, that's the reason why I have delayed it for 5 minutes, but doesn't has helped, students. Today we will stop over here. I mean, I'll just stretch a bit tomorrow, half an hour more, students. Tomorrow we'll start 9:15 sharp, but tomorrow I'll just stretch it up, students, for it, so that whatever is the thing which I could not do it today, I will be covering up in tomorrow's class. Again, I'm repeating, students, please maintain a notebook. because there are certain important statements which arises from certain basic areas also, which I need to capture in your notebook. Point number one. Point number two, from the second topic, which is about supply, which are having a lot of practical questions, which we have discussed yesterday also from the study mat, RTP, MTPs, and the MCQ. We will require to do some of the solving on the same, how to best address those particular question and answers. Is that clear to all of you students? Maintain the notebook. If possible, students, have two color pen. If possible, have also one highlighter with you, just to mark some important reference and all. Fine, students. So tomorrow I'll see you all at 9:15 p.m. at night. I'll stretch tomorrow a bit, 20-25 minutes more, so that the miscellaneous other theory area on the basics, I'll capture it in the tomorrow session. And we'll start with the supply also, which is a very important topic. We all are aware, most important. See you then, students. All of you. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you students. And just have that zeal, and we'll make it this time, students. Fine. See you then. Take care. Bye. Good night.